What's up, YouTube? I wanted to talk about what Jesus said in regards to the return of the Lord, in that he said that there would be buying and selling, planting and building all the way up until he returns. Um, and I think this is helpful when we are putting into context um, some of the events of the book of Revelation and some of the events in regards to uh things happening in the world, and he compared it to Noah entering the ark. And so this is found in Matthew 24 and Luke 17. Let's read Luke first, and I'll start at verse 22 in Luke 17. It says, "Then he said to the disciples, 'The days will come when you will desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. And they will say to you, Look here, or look there. Do not go after them or follow them. For as the lightning that flashes out of one part under heaven shines to the other part under heaven, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. And as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of the Son of Man. They ate and they drank. They ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed.'" So clearly he's talking about a revealing, not necessarily him coming to reign for 1,000 years. Maybe it will be helpful to read when it says in Revelation 20 that they lived and reigned for 1,000 years. "And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was committed to them. Then I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to Jesus and for the word of God, who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received his mark on their foreheads or their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and they shall reign with him 1,000 years." So there's a time where Jesus is reigning for 1,000 years and he's setting up his kingdom. But then there's a time where he is just revealing himself to a mostly unbelieving world and revealing himself to take the church into heaven. The stories that we just read in Luke 17 was talking about how, Noah entered the ark first, which I think can be compared to the rapture. We enter into heaven first, and then the tribulation happens. Now, the tribulation is mostly just the destroying of people, sort of speeding up the death process in order for someone to enter into hell or lake of fire or heaven. It's speeding up the process, of judgment, basically, in a way. You can sort of look at it like that. But anyway, Lot had to exit out of Sodom first, and then the judgment came. And I think Lot is a, great example of how when the angels, were told to, go and, survey the city and then rescue Lot, they told Lot that we cannot do anything until you are out of the city. And so I think that same type of concept can apply to us before the tribulation, is that I think the same concept holds true. They said that God, he does different things, but he never changes as far as, his character and, things that he, stands for will never change, even though um, God may do something different than he normally would, like do it in a different way. But yet, he himself never really changes. And so, one thing I think we have to remember is that, I believe if you really study the rapture, I think it is helpful. Now, I do think we should also talk about Revelation 20, which it's clearly saying there were saints that were alive during the time of the mark of the beast, and they did not take the mark of the beast, and they were beheaded. Um, I think that concept holds true, but I don't know if it's a blanket statement applying to everybody, every Christian, the 2 billion Christians that are alive in the world today. I find it hard to really believe that it is a number where, everybody is beheaded in the church today. Now, again, I just posted a video doing a little bit more of an explanation on Revelation chapter 7, where I believe the rapture group is, separated from the group that is beheaded. But, going back to Matthew 24, we can read what Jesus said in this account. Starting at verse 36, he says, "But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming." So clearly he's connecting being taken with watching your Lord is coming. "But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." So clearly, Jesus is talking about him coming at some sort of time that we do not expect, meaning this is before the tribulation. When you talk about the cataclysmic judgments happening during the tribulation, any time during the tribulation you can expect Jesus to come, because the signs would point to that. Like you see an asteroid coming to the world, people already know that we would think at the end times, I mean, it's the same thing we're doing today is that we're pointing to some of the signs that we see in the world and we're like, this is end times. But even unbelievers are pointing to climate change and they're like, hey, we see this climate change. And so, something's happening. Well, I think Jesus is saying that there's going to be coming a time where it's going to be buying and selling, planting and building, marrying and giving in marriage, where there's not going to really be too many signs that are showing Jesus is returning. And so I think this is a pre-tribulation type of thing. But also, I think there are people that are not prepared. And I think some of these things are going to be allowed to play out, whether it's many different robots that are now in the workforce and now there's no jobs. And now, we get our food from the government or something, or we get our money from the government. We get, we build some sort of utopia-like world. This could be allowed where there's buying and selling, marrying and giving in marriage. People are more comfortable. People are relaxed. There's not really signs of the times too heavily. And there's like worldwide, sort of this spirit of peace and safety. And so that's what I think is going to be happening is, people are going to be saying peace and safety. And then, sudden destruction comes on them, meaning, it's an hour that you do not expect. So that's why sometimes, for us as Christians, I think Paul has already said that, Jesus is not going to come to us unaware, but it's still nevertheless going to be an hour that we do not necessarily expect him to come. But, it's still not going to be completely unaware to us, even though, I think both of those concepts hold true, where it's an hour no one expects, but also it is something that we are sort of expecting. Let's look at that. What Paul was saying in Thessalonians. For you yourselves, 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 2. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. You are sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night nor of the darkness. So he doesn't fully say that it's not going to happen at a time that we don't expect, but he does say that it is at a time where it won't overtake us, meaning we'll see signs leading up to, wow, this, if there, we would say, make statements like, if there was ever a time that Jesus could come, it would be now, or it would be in the coming years. But Jesus has already made the statement that it is going to be at a time that we just do not expect. And so, I think overall, Jesus has talked about an escape from the time that is the tribulation. And I think it's important for us to remember that Jesus has already told us that, um, you know, we can pray to be counted worthy to escape all that will happen. But also, I think the saints that are sort of reigning with Christ 1,000 years, I think it's just alluding to the whole church, that's going to be reigning. But I think there are specifically people who, the explanation that seems like makes sense to me is people who come to faith after the rapture are the ones that, the door is closed to go into heaven. God just doesn't take people to heaven anytime. There's a certain time period where the rapture happens. But those that are, not going to take the mark of the beast, they are still left behind, even though they haven't come to faith in Jesus Christ yet. Eventually they do come to faith. And so this whole thing comes upon them and they're not ready. I think um, Matthew, chapter 25, I think is a great verse that sort of talks about how, five go into the wedding feast and the other five are left behind outside knocking, asking, Lord, Lord, come. They're still virgins. They're still in the church, but yet they come to the wedding feast in a different way, and they live and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. So I think ultimately we just take the information that we have and act accordingly. Whether it be, hey, we're going to go up in the rapture, whether it be, you know, um, sort of bunkering down, through the tribulation. I think, preparing for both scenarios, I think can be helpful. Um, and I think that's what we should do. Now, you know, ultimately, Jesus wants to come and find faith on the earth. And so I think that's what we have to do is remember to stay in faith, even though, the rapture may be, this week, but it may be, at a time where we're not really expecting him. I think now we are sort of expecting, Jesus in the church, but it could be at a time where we're not really expecting. But I think it's going to be overall a time that doesn't really take us unaware, in that we have the scriptures telling us that Jesus is coming, so we're not like fully unaware, oh, Jesus, you're coming back. Oh, I didn't know that. No, no, we have the scriptures telling us some of the signs of the times, different things like that. But then we also have Jesus saying that, things are going to be going on like normal, where, it wasn't until Noah entered the ark, and that's when the flood came. The underground water reservoirs exploded, and the water came gushing out, and people had nowhere to go. And so I think also the stories of Noah and Lot show us that, God has some sort of escape when it comes to tribulation, when it comes to judgments type of thing. Now, maybe for the everyday accidents, I think, that can be sometimes dependent on different things, like getting into a car wreck, or, something, happening in some way. Those are sort of everyday kind of things. But when it comes to, God's wrath and God's judgment, I think, the story of Noah, the story of Lot shouldn't be diminished. I think there are big stories that show us that there is an escape you know, from those times. I think sometimes we always forget Abraham, who was alive during Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham wasn't even a part of the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. He was looking at it from a far distance. And so I think Enoch is the same as the story of Noah. I think Enoch was alive during Noah's time, but Enoch got raptured, and taken into heaven. And Noah went through the flood. Lot was supposed to be with Abraham, but he got separated, and so Lot went through the whole ordeal with Sodom and Gomorrah, but Abraham was, sort of, separated. And so I think God definitely looks at how we are living our Christian life. I think He definitely looks at whether we are repenting, whether we are turning away from the sin and not continuing to sin. I think there's definitely a grace period for sure. If you're still struggling, I think God can, help, but also, you know, uh, there are things that, God is looking at so that we can um, be counted worthy to escape, you know. And when I see the group in Revelation 7, it's a huge group. It says it's a big group that no one can number, and it's not just talking about angels, it's talking about people that escaped from the Great Tribulation. It says they came out of Great Tribulation. So that means that, they escaped from Great Tribulation. And so I think that, you know, um, that is something that we can look at when we're talking about the rapture. I think it's a legitimate doctrine, and I don't think it's too crazy to think, when you're actually looking at the stories of the Bible, there are separate groups that are supposed to be escaping. And so, um, anyway, thanks so much. Hopefully, this was helpful to someone. Hopefully, you got something from it. And I will talk to you on the next one. See ya.